To Oregon and Michigan, buzzer beater in this one. The hometown kid for Oregon made
Yeah.
it. It just kind of a heartbreaker for Michigan. Michigan, ever since Juwan Howard has been back, it's just not looked like the same Michigan team. The defense hasn't been there, but the offense hasn't been quite as good as maybe we saw before. Mike, what are some of your thoughts on Michigan in this game and maybe just in general this season?
Yeah, I think Michigan's kind of still holding on to that St. John's win, hoping to find another one here. I mean, they're sitting at 4-4 right now. It's just been a kind of a confusing season for me from what I've seen from Michigan. A loss to Memphis, a loss to Texas Tech, and now another loss to Oregon. It's always tough to lose on a last second buzzer beater three, but even without that, they're going to go to a second overtime, and I've just, like I said, I'm not sure I've seen what I need to see from Michigan. I'm just a little confused if we're talking about guys that are kind of disappearing. Reed Jr., he's playing 21 minutes. He's got no points. Another one of those guys that you're just kind of scratching your head what he's bringing to the team. It's a little confusing for me so far. I'm not exactly sure what to expect from Michigan at this point.
Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, I watched Michigan, and as somebody who's had them be one of our rivals over the last couple of years, they, for whatever reason, from a mental standpoint, you watch those old teams that they used to have, the Final Four teams a few years back, that seem to really play at a high level and be able to just make smart decisions in tight games. This team struggles with some of that stuff. Like, there's the little things that they just don't do overly well. They have all the talent in the world. They're capable of being a top 10 team, but they just make mistakes and things like that keep other teams in games that they shouldn't. And you look at it and I don't want to bag on the coaching, but it's been kind of a weakness for that team. I think as the coaching staff has not exactly gotten these guys to buy in and play not only unselfish, there's a lot of ISO ball. Like, if you watch this game, who was it? The point guard for Michigan
McDaniel.
Yeah. He was constantly calling people clear outs, and I'm like, this is a surefire way to get your teammates to basically just stand around and do nothing. You get super stagnant when you have somebody that's just wants to start jacking up threes from 25 feet out. That's a problem. They have to figure out a way to play cohesively as a unit, and that would make them so much better if they could consistently do that.
Well, and that was the thing. When Phil Martelli was in charge, they did have like a more cohesive offense going. I felt like more guys were touching the ball down the court. I felt like Doug McDaniel, which by the way, Doug McDaniel is an amazing offensive talent.
He's a very good player.
I'm not taking anything away from him. He deserves to have the ball in his hand. He gets the ISO ball every single game because he is just that spectacular. But at the end of the day, that can't be your only offense. It reminds me a bit of Ohio State last year with Bryce Sensabaugh. Bryce was all offense, very little defense. I mean, I think Doug McDaniel is not a terrible defender. I don't think he's anything spectacular. I don't know if maybe average. But he is just this offensive talent that you kind of, if they're not careful, they're just gonna kind of rely on him to be their only offense down the floor every single time. And that does come back on Juwan Howard and coaching. Mike, are you having the questions about coaching with this Michigan team that we are as well?
Yeah, I think, and we're talking about a lot of ISO ball. They're actually ranked like 220th, I see right now, in assists per field goal made. So plenty of ISO ball. That's well below average as far as they're like 47%, well below average on, assists per field goal made. So it comes back, like you said, it comes back to coaching. I don't know. I'm not the guy that makes multi-million-dollar decisions, so I'm not going to sit here and say what the coaches are doing are right or wrong necessarily, but just like I said, a little head scratcher. I want to see a little bit more team ball, like you said. If we're just ISO balling, you're going to end up, guys standing around, and then the offense is stagnant, and it's not a good look for anybody then. And that's how you get more and more close losses like this, is if guys just aren't touching the ball, aren't being productive on the offensive end of the floor.
One of the other underlying things is Oregon did a really good job of slipping screens in this one, and they were getting some nice easy looks at the rim, because you could see it. There's a couple of times in watching this one where the defenders were just getting angry because the switch would happen at the top, and then they would just not react, and it'd be an easy layup. And it's like, see, this is one of those things. If you want to be a really good defensive team, you have to be more aware of that, because that's one of those things that's going to give easy hidden points in a game that end up being the difference.
Well, cohesion and communication on defense is so important. And when I don't mean to keep coming back to it, but really, I mean, basketball, the game is all played together. Your defense and your offense is all played together. You can't go down the floor and play iso ball every single time. I mean, they had 11 assists and 16 turnovers in this game.
Yeah.
You can't be not sharing the ball on offense and then come down and play defense and expect to be cohesive and communicative. I mean, it just doesn't work that way. You have to have some kind of, working together and working in a cohesive way. I know I said that word a lot, but it's just what I keep going back to with this Michigan team is, are they cohesive? Are they working together? I feel like with Juwan Howard's NBA background, I don't know if he is building that with this college team like you need to. This is what we see the great college coaches do. This is what we see a Bill Self do. He takes these amazing players. This is what we saw Coach K do, is he takes these amazing players who really could just win the game on their own, and then he brings them together and says, guys, you're a team, play together. And I just don't see that with Juwan. Mike, if we're being honest here, do you think Juwan makes it to the end of the year?
It depends. I mean, let me look at their schedule real quick. I don't know if they have a whole bunch of, I guess they have Florida in the non-con still. That's a kind of a signature win they could get. It depends how many kind of signature wins, if they get a big win over Purdue or something like that. But they play Purdue pretty late in the season, and now you're kind of wondering, is he going to be around long enough to even see that game? So, I think it depends. If they get things righted, I think they definitely, as we mentioned, have all the talent in the world. So I think they get it right, and I think they give them a chance to stick it out this year. I'd like to see that. I'm never a fan of, somebody losing their job, but if the slide keeps it, they've lost 2 in a row now. If they go into conference play and they lose 3, 4, 5, out of the first, 6 or 7, it's going to be tougher to argue to keep them around for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's what the hard part is. I don't want to see guys get fired either. I especially don't want to see them get fired in the middle of the season, because I think that's so hard on the players. But just with the way that, the coaching carousel works nowadays, if you're one of the first ones to fire, you're one of the first ones to hire.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, that's what you want. We saw it with, it was St. John's and Rick Pitino last year. One of the main reasons they were able to get him is because they let go of, I forget his name. But the old coach there at St. John's, they were able to let go of him pretty early. They weren't making the tournament. They were able to move on from him. And when Rick Pitino lost in the first round, kind of the match that needed to happen. So, Justin, you have any thoughts on Juwan Howard and his future?
Yeah, I think it's going to depend on what their expectations are for him this season. I would think that the administration's probably looking for you to be, top 5 Big Ten. And I don't know if I see that with them. I think there are a few teams that are really going to be fighting in that area that they are not playing remotely as clean a basketball as right now. And I think it's going to be hard for them. If they start fading into the bottom half of the league, I think that could be what basically costs them at that point. Because if they end up with a roughly 500 record or around that area, I think it's going to be hard to really sell yourself on keeping him.
Yeah.
Well, the good news for Juwan Howard is that the football team is doing very well.
That makes it harder on him. The expectations are so much higher.
Yeah, true.
Well, I was going to say he's got some time to right the ship before Michigan fans are paying too much attention.
Yeah. True.
So, which maybe they will be with the conference championships over. They will be paying more attention to that. Listen to the Big Ten Huddle. Please do like and subscribe. We appreciate that. If this was your first time listening, we are the Big Ten Huddle. We cover all things Big Ten football and basketball. We have a long episode every Sunday, Tuesday, and Wednesday night, all at 9 o'clock. So come in, check us out, get in the chat, let us know what you're thinking. We would love to have you join us and learn more about the Big Ten.